I would like to invite back to our presentation Dr. Nikki Dix, who's going to kind of set the stage for us for a series of presentations that we have tomorrow.
So like Caitlin said, we've been hearing talks all morning about water quality and plankton and public health. And then tomorrow we have a bunch of talks about coastal wetlands. So this really quick presentation is my attempt at linking those two things. And I just wanted to kind of highlight too that the relationship between water quality and coastal wetlands is a very much needed and emerging area of research in the GTM. So what we know for sure is that wetlands affect water quality and water quality affects wetlands. What we don't really know yet are the details of that relationship and really how that plays out at the estuary scale. And the reason it's not obvious is because it's really complicated, at least from my point of view. So you can tell in this diagram and all the things that affect nitrogen cycling in wetlands are many, and estuaries by themselves are already very dynamic. And so most people in this field kind of focus on nitrogen because that's the primary limiting nutrient for plant growth. And adding nitrogen almost always increases plant biomass in the short term, but can have negative effects in the long term. So there's a really nice animation on this NOAA site about how estuaries filter water. And I just thought this was a good example of how wetlands influence water quality. So the marshes really absorb and kind of act as a filter for the pollutants that are running off the land into the ocean and the estuary. But also, what we don't often talk about is that as we lose wetlands, the nutrients that are stored in the wetlands get released, and then we have less wetland area to uptake the nutrients that are coming in from the watershed. And we'll talk a little bit more about wetland loss tomorrow. In one study in the Mid-Atlantic region in 2012, they fertilized a tidal creek and found that in the creek with high nutrient levels, the wetlands produced less organic matter and less root structure. And so they were more easily eroded and the tidal creeks got wider over time. So you can see that in this case, high nutrients had a negative effect on the wetlands. And then we have this study from Emily Dingerman and others from the GTM estuary where they showed that actually adding nitrogen caused an increase in Avicennia germinans or black mangroves and a decrease in Baetis maritima or the succulent marsh species, suggesting that nitrogen enrichment, an ongoing phenomenon, can hasten the invasion of mangroves into salt marshes by favoring mangrove growth and reproduction without significantly enhancing salt marsh plant growth. So another piece to the puzzle for us to consider. And then this is just my last slide, just to say that we are working on all of these questions with visiting scientists from different universities and actually have a proposal led by Sam Chapman, looking at the effects of altered hydrology and nutrients on wetland sustainability. So this diagram shows the concept of a sustainable wetland on top can take up nutrients, gain elevation over time, and basically survive as sea level rises. But when you have altered hydrology with things like oyster rakes that we have lining our intracoastal waterway, the wetlands behind those rakes can have reduced flushing and actually may be releasing nutrients into the system, as well as fragmenting and actually losing parts of the wetland. So we find out, I think, next week whether this project got funded or not. It's another science collaborative project, so everyone keep your fingers crossed. And whether or not this gets funded, this is definitely an area of future research. So I hope that we'll be seeing more about this next year. And that's all I wanted to say about that. So thank you all for such a great day. And I'm really happy we had some great presentations on water quality and look forward to talking a lot about wetlands tomorrow and lots of other topics.